Alright, so I haven't made a video in about a month. Um, I've been kind of busy, and I just found out I had COVID. So, what better time to do a video than while I'm quarantining? Trying to take it easy. My throat's all fucked up. So, right off the bat, you'll notice that there's now rounded corners. And they actually did a pretty good job here where I can put the arrow. And so they didn't fuck that up too much. But one thing I don't understand is why they put rounded corners on the top. But not the bottom, as you can see. So these are rounded, but these aren't. So it looks kind of weird to me. Um, that's just my opinion. Um, they did get rid of the hybrid theme, though. I think 2 versions ago, maybe. I've noticed that. So the mint white darker gray is no longer available. And I'm not sure how I feel about that, because on one hand I do like the the black border up here and then the light uh, thing here, so it's kind of a hybrid approach. On the other hand, that has caused some issues, mainly with like synaptic and shit. Um, if I can find synaptic here, there it is. Just put in my password. So on synaptic with papyrus, or papyrus dark for that matter, because the top bar would be dark and then this would be light. These buttons here wouldn't show up properly. Um, so that was an issue with the hybrid theme, um, with mint darker. So I'm not that shook up that they got rid of it. Dark looks fine, honestly. Um, I did change the folders to papyrus gray instead of black because that would just look stupid. Um, so if we go to files here, you can see we have gray files. And the black doesn't look too good. So I went with gray. Um, so if we do black, put in our password, we can actually show what that looks like. So accessories, files. As you can see, that doesn't look too good. It blends in a little too well. So we're just going to change that back to gray. Gray does look better. And there we go, now we can see them. I haven't installed any Flatpaks yet because that's where I was running into issues, was with Flatpaks not updating because the GNOME version is out of date. It seems to be working right now. I think it has something to do with when I update the kernel to something that's not supported. That might be part of the issue. Um, I do like Cinnamon as a desktop environment the best, honestly. It is just a better, um, it's just a better version of GNOME, honestly. We now have an event thing on the calendar as well. Um, One thing about Cinnamon that only applies to Linux Mint and doesn't really apply anywhere else is if you right-click, you can uninstall from the menu. That part of Cinnamon isn't available on anything but Mint, and so I do end up missing that because it does remove some of the simplicity of Cinnamon. We don't really have much else to talk about that's new with Mint or Cinnamon other than the rounded corners and the addition to the calendar, really. And they got rid of Mint Darker, which is the hybrid theme. Other than that, I haven't really noticed anything different. One thing I am happy about, though, is the last version of Linux Mint would not fucking boot at all on this laptop. If I plugged the thumb drive in, it had some sort of error that wouldn't let it boot. That seems to be fixed, obviously, because I have this installed. And I will say this about Mint. Out of all the distros I've tried, Manjaro, Endeavor, Pop OS, MX Linux, OpenSUSE, Fedora, only two distros, Mint and Debian. When I booted up, I didn't have to increase my brightness at all. So it seems to work well with this laptop. And what's really fucked up is that Fedora does have issues with this laptop. And Fedora is owned by IBM, and IBM owns Lenovo. So you'd think there'd be no issues, but you'd be wrong. You'd also think that I wouldn't have to pay for Windows. I could just, order it with Fedora, but again, you'd be wrong too. It's really a piece of shit. Um, the company's really a piece of shit, and I never really liked IBM for that reason. They do a lot of good for the community in Linux, but when it comes to the hardware they sell, because a lot of people don't realize that Lenovo is owned by IBM, there needs to be more done to promote Linux for that, because paying $100 for a operating system is fucking stupid if you're never going to use it, and they make it next to impossible to get a refund for it. So in other words, you're forced to pay $100 for something that you may or may not use, and if you aren't going to be using Windows, you just paid $100 for fucking nothing. And that's really the only issue I have with Lenovo. This ThinkPad, though, is very good. It is, I've had it for about a year now. If we go to CPUX, we can see we have a Ryzen 7 Pro 4750U. It's an 8-core, 16-thread processor. It is Renoir for graphics. I think this is 7 nanometer if I'm not mistaken. There's the root version. Let's try that. I didn't see the point of going with 5,000. Alright, now we can tell the voltage is less than a volt. That's the memory that came with it. Don't buy Team Group's memory. It's registered as, well, it says it's 3200, but it's not registered as 2300. 3200. It's registered as 2667. So that's what everything's running as, because Team Group sucks. This is a great laptop, and Mint is a great distro and always has been. It's always been minor issues I've had with Mint. Nothing that really breaks the system, but if you're using Flatpaks to get the most up-to-date version of LibreOffice, for example, it can be a bit frustrating if you can't update your software. Um, Almost every issue I've ever had never stuck around more than a month or two. It's always been fixed very well. Um, it's just minor things with Mint. Um, and really, my biggest issue is because it's a fork of GNOME, and with what GNOME's been doing and taking away features and shit, a lot of features that you can get back by just using Cinnamon instead. Um, I'm just not sure how much longer GTK is going to be a viable option um, with forks of GNOME because of the version they're using for the fork is so far behind the original that it's created some issues. Like Flatpak wouldn't update because the GNOME runtime was too out of date. That's what I'm getting at. So I'm not sure if that's going to continue to be a problem. I'm hoping it's not. Um, Time will tell, I guess. It is nice to be using something as simple as Mint again, because there is a lot I don't have to do. I can just install it, start installing shit, and start using it. And even though I'm more intermediate than anything, I'm definitely not as advanced as some people. But I like the simplicity of just being able to install something and using it. Uh, let's see, we have one. So Flatpak seems to be working fine. I've never really used a dark theme, like completely dark theme. I've always used hybrid themes. Um, I would be interested in using KDE. I think KDE has made a lot of advancements, but their theming is still garbage. Their theming is a fucking mess. The biggest issue I have with KDE's theme is if I use GNOME or XFCE or Cinnamon, I can launch, say, Kdenlive, for example, because that's a KDE app. And as you can see, the theme I set just automatically applies. With KDE, you have to separately set the theme for KDE and GTK. The theme doesn't just apply to both. And I think that's really fucking stupid. Um, I've had issues where, and I think I've showed this before, I don't remember, where if I change the cursor, it'll work in a window, but when I put my thing over here like this onto the desktop, it'll revert to default for some fucking reason, and I have never been able to figure out why. Um, so there's just a lot of minor issues that just make KDE look like shit, and unfortunately, if your theming's broken or garbage, I'm just not going to use your distro or your desktop environment. It's one of those things where I have to look at my screen constantly, and I don't want to look at something that's broken. So the version of is now 7.2.5. So we are now running, I think, the latest version. Um, so if we do Flatpak update, nothing to do. Flatpak still works great. Um, so yeah, overall Linux Mint is a great distro, and I highly recommend it to anyone that's looking to switch to Linux. Um, when my cousin was having issues, because she works from home, and she couldn't log on to her Wi-Fi because Windows updated and then somehow broke the Wi-Fi driver. I just installed Mint for her, and she's had no issues since. Um, I think Ramina is the software she has to use for virtual desktop. Um, but yeah, she hasn't had any issues. And really, I haven't really had any issues with Mint other than minor things with packages not working. It really is one of the most stable distros I've ever used, and it is very easy to just set up. Um, I'm not really sure how I feel about the rounded top corners without the rounded bottom. That's going to take some getting used to, I think. But yeah, it is a great distro, and I think I'm going to stick with it because every time I distro hop, I always come back to Mint. Um, and I really do need to be on Debian because a lot of the packages I use, if I'm not on something Debian based, I have to use Snap, and I don't want to use Snap packages. I really don't like Snap. Um, so I'll see you guys in the next video, and sorry for making you wait a month for a video. Uh, Alright, see you guys in the next one.